Well, it's finally here. I managed to finally finish off this list that was supposed to be done at the end of last year. Here is my top 20 favourite albums of 2018. Before we jumped into the main list, I wanted to go through a few honourable mentions because there were so many good albums that came out this year. I felt like I needed to try and highlight absolutely everything if I could. And the albums I want to give a shout out to are The Carter 5, Black Panther, Nasir, KOD, Question Mark, Kamikaze, The Book of Eli, and Die Lit by Playboi Carti. All those albums right there, I felt like they had a lot of fun songs across them that I really enjoyed, but as a complete project, they just didn't quite make the top 20 for me personally. However, I think if I had to swap out the number 20 spot with any of them, I'd probably swap it out with either KOD or The Carter 5. But with that out of the way, let's get into my top 20, and with my number 20 spot, I chose I Am More Than I Was by 21 Savage. So, I'm not going to sit here and say this is an overly lyrical or lyrically impressive album, but going from 21's previous albums, this is a huge step in the right direction, and it honestly made me pretty excited for his future releases. There were some great songs like A Lot, Monster, Letter to My Mama, Good Day, just a bunch of good songs where 21 sort of highlighted what's great about him, but also tried some different things too. The features were all pretty solid. I really liked Gambino's verse on Monster. Even though it wasn't really saying too much lyrically, I still felt like it was a pretty nice verse. And overall, I Am More Than I Was pretty solid from front to back. For my number 19 slot, I had Book of Ryan by Royce da 5'9". So this album was really high up on the list for me at first, but the more and more I thought about it, the lower I had to bring it. Because although there are some really good songs on there, like Dumb, Godspeed, Caterpillar, Cocaine, there's just... Overall, the album wasn't really consistent enough in my opinion, and it hurts me to say that because I actually really loved the amount of personal detail and thought that went into this album. I think conceptually it's great, but there was just a few songs I just don't listen to whenever I listen to the album. Overall though, it's still really solid and I really love it, but the album has just sort of gone down the list a bit for me as the year's gone on. So, shout out to Royce, but he comes in at the number 19 slot. At number 18, I had Beer Bongs and Bentleys by Post Malone. So, this is pretty much an album full of songs from front to back that you could pretty much just release as a single and find big success. Post made a bunch of great songs, great hooks, great beats. His singing sounds great on pretty much every track. There's one or two tracks I'd cut out, but overall it's a pretty solid album. And the reason why it's not higher on the list is just because it's kind of just fairly simple music. It's simple, it's catchy, it does the job, but it's nothing deep or profound or really crazy about it. But nonetheless, I still think it's a pretty good album. At my number 17 spot, I had Iridescence by Hampton. This was originally in my top 10 back earlier in the year, but a few of the songs have just kind of drifted off for me a bit. And honestly, it would be higher if it wasn't for the fact that the Saturation trilogy was so good, and I'm comparing it to that. It probably would be around like the number 12 or 13 spot if it wasn't for the Saturation trilogy being a thing and them sort of doing a lot of these ideas before, just a little bit better. But there were some great songs like Thug Life, Tonya, Wait. Those three songs are all really great in my opinion. San Marcos is great as well, Fabric, but it just didn't quite come together as well as I would have hoped. Oh yeah, Jovert is another great song, but it just kind of was lacking a little bit for me. And that does not mean it's a bad album. Everything in the top 20 was really hard for me to decide because they're all really good albums in my opinion. It's just that Iridescence kind of shined a little bit less and less as the year went on. But shout out to Brockhampton. In my number 16 slot, I had A Love Letter to You 3 by Trippy Red. Now, I love this album. I was completely taken aback by liking a Trippy Red album so much, but the beats, his hooks, his flows, everything that he did on this album was pretty damn great to me, and it was a huge step up from his other work. His lyrics do leave something to be desired, like He said, "I'm the shit like my butt stink" on one of his songs, which is a pretty awful fucking line, but he still manages to make really great, catchy, and good sounding songs with his unique sounding voice and edge. And that's something I just really like about Trippie Redd, especially since he released Life's a Trip. I've just been liking his music more and more. But yeah, it was a really solid album and I enjoyed it a lot. At my number 15 slot, I've got Care For Me by Saba. Now, this is in some people's top 5s, top 3s, some people's album of the year, but despite having 6 songs I think are really good quality, there's still 4 songs I just think are kind of meh. And although Saba's other songs are so amazing on the album, I feel like as an overall experience it just doesn't quite match some of the other albums I'm about to list. But it's still a great album. Saba delivers some really heartfelt and emotional lyrics across this album, intense, amazing flows, intense lyrics, he's got great storytelling, just heartfelt, honest rap, and that's something I always love to hear. A couple of the songs were just kind of okay, and they didn't have anything particularly special about them, which is really disappointing because I think Saba's an extremely talented artist, but shout out to him. At my number 14 slot, I had FM by Vince Staples. So this was just a really straightforward album, some smart, witty lyricism from Vince, some good features, great hooks, amazing beats. Kenny Beats produced his ass off on some of these songs. Yeah, it's just a great experience. It's basically just like putting on a radio station for a little bit, because you get these short little interludes like Earl Sweatshirt and Tiger, and then you hear Big Boy talking and everything like that. It's just a really good experience of an album. There's not too much I have to say about it other than the fact it's just really solid and enjoyable. At my number 13 spot, I had Trench by 21 Pilots. This is a great fucking album. 21 Pilots really blew me away. I didn't like their music that much before. I kind of like Stressed Out the first few times I heard it and then deleted it. But this album is just full of great production, great rapping, amazing hooks. There's a few songs on here that weren't quite great, which is why I didn't make it into the top 10. But it's an extremely solid album. And for you guys that like rock and alternative, but like rap too, it's a mix of the both. It's really a great and interesting album to listen to, and it's got a cool little storyline woven into it as well. I would 100% recommend this album to pretty much anybody who's liked 21 Pilots music in the past, or anyone who's sort of has liked certain parts of their music but never quite got into them. It's 100% worth it, and you should definitely check this album out. At the number 12 spot, I had Yay by Kanye West. Now, I really like this album. I don't think there's a single bad song on it. But unfortunately, Yay is just another case of an album just sort of like losing its power to me over time. I listened to it again the other day when I was going through all these albums, and it's still great. And honestly, if I didn't listen to it again, it might not have even made the top 20, because I forgot how much I liked this album. But Kanye's really personal, he goes fairly deep. It's just a great album, and the only reason why I feel like it's this low is because Kids See Ghosts just felt like a so much better of an album compared to Yay. There's a few other factors that made it this low, but I just feel like it doesn't stand out as like a really great or fantastic album compared to some of the other ones. But I still think it's a great and fantastic album regardless, because it's in my top 15, and pretty much anything in my top 15 is top tier albums to me. But yeah, I like Yay. I'm rambling. It's a good album. At my number 11 spot, I have Astroworld by Travis Scott. Now, this was so close to making it into the top 10 until I listened to a few albums the past week to just catch up and make sure I didn't miss out on any hits. This was probably going to be about number 9 or 8 until I listened to those albums, and damn, it's still a really great album. The production is just fantastic all the way through it. Travis sounds great on pretty much every song he's on. He does leave some things to be desired in the lyrics department, but that's just a Travis Scott thing. Songs like Stargazing, Sicko Mode, No Bystanders, Astro Thunder, the list goes on. It's just full of really great produced songs, and Travis sounds awesome. And he's really does some different things too, like with having Stevie Wonder on harmonica, on Stop Trying to Be God, and having Kid Cudi on there too. He really feels like he's pieced together his own little world, which is exactly what he wanted to do with this album. I think Astroworld was a really big success, even if it didn't quite turn out to be the flawless album I was hoping it would be. But I guess we'll have to see what Travis's next album is like. Alright, now we're getting into the top 10. And I've been talking a lot, but I'm probably going to keep it fairly brief with all of these albums up until about the top 5. But at number 10, we've got Daytona. Amazing production from Kanye all the way through. Pusha, simple but complex lyrics that say a lot by saying little. Hard delivery. He honestly is one of the best rappers this year in terms of just his pure rapping and how he delivers lines, how he raps, the slickness of his lines. It's a really great album. It's super watertight from front to back. You can listen to this album over and over again. And despite that, it's having the similar effect to other albums this year. I still love this album. In fact, I actually bought it on vinyl and CD. I like it that much. But it just didn't quite make it any higher on the list because I just love these other albums so much. But Daytona is still fantastic, and I would 100% recommend anybody who hasn't listened to Pusha T, listen to Daytona right now. At my number 9 spot, I have DiCaprio 2 by JID. It's a case of me really loving the songs the first time I hear them, playing the shit out of the album, and then some of the songs sort of losing their magic to me. But songs like Working Out, Hasta Luego, Despacito 2, Off the Zoinkies, Strawberries, I really love all those songs, but the first part of the album kind of got a little bit stale to me now. But I still love the rapping in it, but it's just something about it just doesn't quite have the magic it used to. I'm sure it'll grow on me again in a few months, and I'll probably say it's higher on the list. In terms of rapping, flow, how he controls a track, JID was definitely easily one of the best rappers of 2018, if not the best rapper. And although I said the same thing about Pusha T, I think JID, when it comes to a technical edge, he's got him. But either way, this album's fantastic. Please give it a listen if you haven't heard JID before. At my number 8 spot, I have Isolation by Kali Uchis. Now, this was one of these albums in the past few weeks I listened to. I gave it some time. I listened to it a lot because I didn't want to just review it, make the video and say, yeah, this is number 4 or whatever. But it's just full of so much personality. Kali has some really good lyrics for a singer. Like, I typically don't expect great lyrics from most singers just because of the music I listened to growing up. But she's got some really great and witty lyrics, like talking about, you know, this guy wanting her to film Bound 1, but why would she be Kim when she can be Kanye? Just really cool lines like that in her songs. She has so much personality, and this album has this old school flair with like a modernized twist, and I just really like it. There's a couple songs I could trim out, but overall it's a really solid album. I will definitely be buying this on vinyl because I love the album cover and I love the album. So, shout out to Kali, this is a great album. At my number 7 spot, I have Whack World by Tierra Whack. This is a unique album if I've ever heard one. 15 one-minute songs ranging all over the place and how they sound and what they're about. And almost every song, I think you could say, is fantastic in its own right. When you pair this with the music video, it is easily one of the best pieces of art I've seen in a very, very long time, if not ever. I think the music video is absolutely amazing and very artistic and beautiful, and Tierra has a great singing voice, a great flow and rapping, weird quirky beat choices. She's just an artist through and through, and it really shines through in her music. I can't wait to see what a full-length album would actually sound like from Tierra Whack, and for that reason, I think it just deserves a spot this high on the list. At my number 6 spot, I have Room 25 by Noname. Now, this album is so good. I was blown away by this album when it finally hit me. First listen, I didn't get the hype. Second listen, kinda getting it. Third listen, it's pretty good. Fourth listen, this is pretty solid. Fifth listen, this album is amazing. Now, it's a very subtle album. It's not an album that's going to hit you in the face with, oh wow, this song is amazing, but her lyrics are just so fantastic across this entire album. Noname has so much personality, great flows, and she writes just poetry. It's like spoken word put to rap. Like, so much thought put into everything she says, and it's so clever and well put together. It's just a great album. All of the features really do their thing too. Like, Saba's flows were amazing, Smino was great on Ace, the singers and all the performers across this entire album were great. Room 25 is probably one of my most unexpectedly loved albums of the year, and yeah, it's just great. It's really low key, but it's very nice and beautiful. All of the production is well layered and put together. Definitely take some time to listen to it. At my number 5 spot, I have Oxnard by Anderson .Paak. Now, I like Anderson .Paak. I got a pretty terrible first impression of him from the 2016 XXL Cypher. I took your mama to Yard House. Like, that was just absolutely terrible. But his singing voice and his rapping, it's on point. I really shouldn't have doubted him because he really came through on this album from front to back. There's 2 tracks on the entire album I didn't like. One of them was a bonus track. The rest of the album is so solid, just Dr. Dre helping him make this album is great. Dr. Dre even rapping on here. We've got Snoop Dogg, we've got Pusha T, we've got Q-Tip. Great features all round. His performances are awesome. Can't forget Kendrick's amazing feature either on Tints. It's a very soulful and funky album with a bit of jazz mixed in there too. Reminds me of To Pimp a Butterfly if it was happier and just like more about the come up and how Anderson .Paak has come up. The only thing that reminds me of To Pimp a Butterfly for the record is the production. But yeah, it's a really fantastic album and it just makes me feel good to listen to this album. And that's something I always want to have, just my go-to feel-good album that just puts me in a mood. Oxnard, seal of approval. Amazing album. At my number 4 spot, I have Some Rap Songs by Earl Sweatshirt. Some Rap Songs, Earl really blew me away. Like, I knew that Earl was a great rapper. I haven't listened to an entire Earl project until now. I listened to bits of I Don't Like Shit, I Don't Go Outside and bits of Doris, but his lyrics were just so great across this album. But the thing that really steals the show is the production. It's so amazing. It sounds like it's just lost from another era. It sounds like there's just been all these samples and bits of like a musician's mind just fragmented and put back together in different places with all these weird samples and everything put together. I just really like this album. It sounds old school, it sounds classic, but it also sounds new at the same time. There's something about this album that keeps me coming back to it and playing it all the way through. I don't have a single song on here that I don't listen to when I play this album, and that is really impressive in itself. Some Rap Songs is really amazing. I'm probably going to get it on vinyl or CD if those are available, but yeah, it's a really good album. Earl's full of emotion, talks all about his life, some very deep content, and just Earl is a great rapper. If you want some very interesting production, weird mixing and great rapping, this is the album to go to. But I think out of all the albums on this list, besides maybe my next one, this will definitely be the only album that I think will probably put some people off and some people will absolutely hate. But yeah, to me, I love it, and, you know, this is my list after all, so. At my number 3 spot, I have Veteran by JPEG Mafia. This album is so fucking good, man. It is so creative. It is the most creative album. Oh. Yeah. My green screen's holding up for now, but, yeah. It's one of the most creative albums I've ever heard in my entire life. The production from front to back sounds like you're trapped inside a computer while somebody's smashing you in the head with a sledgehammer. It is some of the weirdest production I've ever heard in my life, and I really love pretty much all of it for the most part. Peggy is one of the most charismatic rappers I've heard ever. He's so weird and funny, and he feels like everything he's saying is joking, but it's also serious and funny at the same time. He is a really one-of-a-kind artist, and I don't think we're going to have many, if any, other rappers like him for the next 10, 20 years. In my opinion, he's really something special, and I think his next album is probably going to be even better than this. The only reason why this album isn't my number 1 or 2 is because there's a couple songs on here that, despite it being such a creative and well thought out and amazing album in my opinion, there's a couple songs I'd trim out. Not many, just a couple, like 1 or 2. And for that reason, I can't put it at number 1 or 2. This green screen, man. Yeah, I had to do a little bit of adjusting with the green screen because it just wanted to be stupid, but some people will love this album straight away, others will hate it straight away, others will never like it, but it is 100% worth checking out, at least for the experience of even listening to some of these tracks. Like, they're pretty ridiculous. At my number 2 spot, this was probably the hardest spot to decide all year because I was like, damn, should I pick this album or this album? I love both of them so much. They're my most listened to albums of the year. I just love them from front to back. And what I decided to do was I decided to base it not necessarily off quality, but off how much and how likely I am to return to the album. And with that being said, I chose Kids See Ghosts as my number 2 spot. In terms of quality, how well structured the album is, how well put together it is, I think this is the best album of the year. But I just think there's a certain quality about my number 1 spot that just keeps me coming back to it more than this. Kids See Ghosts is filled with pretty fantastic production from front to back. It's super unique, super creative. Kanye and Cudi are in top form. It's just Kanye and Cudi with great lyrics that speak to the soul and just some fantastic and creative production throughout. 7 tracks, super short, super replayable. Easily one of my favorite albums that Kanye's ever put out, and I just really love this album. For some reason, I just keep coming back to it over and over again. I don't know what it is about it. It's just got a really special quality to me that I love. And I understand some people say the lyrics aren't that great, it's overrated, the production isn't that amazing, blah 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 blah, but I just love this album, and I think it deserves the number 2 spot. My number 1 spot has got to be Taboo by Denzel Curry. I love this album so much. Like, I became a big fan of Denzel Curry after Imperial. The 13 EP got me even more invested into him, and then this album right here really just pushed me over the edge and made me a full-on fan of him. I just think as an overall experience, there were no albums that quite hit me like this. From the really dark, light side to the very realistic and gritty grey part to the disgustingly angry and dirty, dark section. I just think it was great all the way through. I really, really liked Denzel's flows on every track, his delivery on every track, his aggression on the tracks where he needed it, his singing on the tracks where he needed it was great. His lyrics were pretty fantastic across almost the entire album. Taboo, for example, is an extremely powerful song, really delving into Denzel's past. Yeah, you just have great songs from front to back across this whole album, whether it's Switch It Up, Sirens, Mad I Got It, Clout Cobain, Perks, 13MT, Vengeance, Taboo, Black Balloons. Just so much diversity, so much range, and it just was a really interesting and a really great album. And it's probably my favorite album that's been released in the past couple years. It's definitely up there with the Saturation trilogy and Forever Is a Mighty Long Time anyway. I'll say that much. I'll say that Taboo certainly exceeded my expectations for Denzel Curry, and the thing is, I know that he can do even better after hearing this album. But with that being said, those are my top 20 albums of 2018. This video took me quite a long time to make, believe it or not, just because of me listening to all of these albums over and over again, deciding their spots, and then me trying to figure out this blue screen. Still don't know if it's going to work, but either way, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your guys' time. I hope you enjoyed the list. I hope you agree with the list. If you don't, let me know what you would swap out. Let me know what I missed. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this for all you guys that did. And yeah, can't wait to see what 2019 brings for music. Make sure if you guys haven't yet, you drop a like, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell if you don't want to miss any videos from me. And also, if you really want to support me, I've got links to my merch in the description below, along with my website, my music, and everything like that. But thank you very much. I appreciate your support, and I'll see you in the next video. All these people think that I quit, man, I just took some time to rush it. When I picked that beat to die, it's righteous. I just might break a rhyme and strike this. My fist will swing round town, put you in a ground pound. I ain't taking it for granted when I bring a sound down. I got one goal when I look into the crowd. Fuck shit up every second I'm allowed. I'm just gonna say one thing, don't never let no man kill your dream. Never gonna be relevant what they think. They don't know you when they don't know me. Yeah, I keep it real from the jump. Skinny white kids and I don't act tough. I just be doing this shit for the love and the sound of the bass that you bump on the drum.